Hello, everyone. This is Al Fadi, and I want to welcome you back to a continuation of this series. Today, we are going to continue with our critical assessment of the standard Islamic narrative. And this time, of course, we are still talking about the place, that's Mecca. And the focus of this episode has to do with the language of Mecca, the language of Mecca. We know that there is this claim that it's an Arabic language, but where can we trace this particular language to? Is it really the Mecca or the surrounding area, or does it come from a completely different geographical location? Mecca is in a region called Hijaz, by the way, just in case you are wondering. With me here, of course, as always, is Dr. J. Smith to continue with this unpacking of those kind of problems. So, Dr. J, what about the language of Mecca?
Okay, so we've talked about the geography, now moving into linguistics. And of course, we're talking about this book, the Qur'an itself. When you look at the Arabic, you can read the Arabic here, and you notice that the Arabic has certain things that are unique about it. There are many kinds of Arabic, just like there are many kinds of English or many kinds of Spanish. There are many ways to say words. There are many ways to write it differently, especially if when in the 7th century, when there was no dots or vowels yet. We're going to get into that later in later episodes. There were not dots and vowels that early. There were only 16 consonantal letters. So those 16 consonantal letters would have been very significant, especially if they are there today. If you look at them, you'll see them there today. Well, Al-Jalad, and this is where Al-Jalad has been really helpful. You know him, you've used him in your own research. And then also Mark Dury, you know him personally. I know him personally. He's a good friend. He has written about this, that there are some problems when you look at the Arabic here in the Quran. Because the Arabic in this book does not come from Mecca and Medina. That's the problem. So let's look at the slide. Let's go to the slide and see what we find. And we're going to show a map. So here's the map of Saudi Arabia. It's called Saudi Arabia today because that's the modern day. I'm using Google Maps. I'm using the modern name. The Quranic Arabic, this is the Qurayshi. Remember, it was the Qurayshi, the tribe that Muhammad came from. This is what the traditions tell us. He spoke the Qurayshi Arabic when this book was finally written back in 652 by Zayd ibn Thabit under the authority of Uthman. He said, write it in the Qurayshi Arab dialect. Explain that to people why that's important.
Well, I mean, that is important for two reasons. Number one, Muhammad came allegedly from a tribe known as Quraysh, and therefore the claim here is that it was revealed to him in his own dialect, the Qurayshi dialect. So Uthman was saying, if you get into issues, because the Uthmanic collection, by the way, resulted from the fact that they were Arabs speaking different dialects fighting with each other. I mean, that tells you right there that there is a problem. But all that to say is that Uthman says, settle any differences if you have an issue by using the Qurayshi dialect because it is the dialect of the Prophet. But the second problem here is that we don't have evidence here that the language or everything else about the Quran actually is consistent with one specific dialect. We know that there are a number of dialects that have been canonized, if you wish.
Yeah, we're going to get into the dialectical difficulties when we get to the Quran itself, so that's yet to come. But I just want to look at this, back at the slide again. Let's look at this map here again and consider, when you look at the map, according to what the standard Islamic narrative tells us, is this green area here, this green rectangular, that is where everything takes place. There is Medina, here is Mecca. It's within that western part of the central part of Arabia. So the Quran had to all been written here. The difficulty is, when you look at that rectangle, you'll see that there are problems. Jalad brings this up. Mark Dewey brings this up. And what does he tell us? Well, he says when you look at the grammatical reference point or the grammatical material in the Quran, they are all from the red areas. See where the red area is up, that red rectangle? What specifically? Let me give you some examples. Jalad and Mark Dury talk about the ihrab, the unstressed inflectional short vowels, which are marked with diacritics known as ihrab because they were characteristics of Bedouin dialects that are found much further north.
That's the Arab, basically, and that's what he's referring to. And a Jalad, of course, is an Arab. I mean, he knows that.
Okay? The tar marbuta, that you find in the Quran. What is the tar marbuta? Help people understand what
I mean,
that
it's
is.
just what people see, and right there, before the brackets, right there, it's like
Can you see
a
it right there?
circle with two dots above it.
Yeah. You can see it right there before you get to the word tar marbuta. That's the tar marbuta. It's at the end of the word. And what does it do to the word?
Well, it sounds like a ha, but it's kind of like it ends like when you say Jannah, Jannatun, that's the ta marbuta.
Okay.
Imra'atun, meaning woman, that's a ta marbuta.
Circle with
at
two
the
dots,
end.
but put
Yeah.
the T sound in there.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so that
Yeah.
is in the Quran. That's right through the Arabics in the Quran. But that comes from way up here, way up in the north. That was unique to that part. The Alif Maksura, there you can see a picture of it. Looks like an S, a small S. That's also at the end. The word final address, Yah. So that is from the Nabateans. This is the Nabateans up here. This is Nabatean Petrea. This is way up in Jordan, about 600 miles further north. That's where you find the Alif Maksura. Do you want to say anything about the Alif Maksura?
I would just say the sound of it, like when you hear Muslims say, talk about Allah and say Subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's ala. This is the Alif Maksura, basically, at the end.
And then I'm going to give you a fourth one that they point to, and that is the definite article. What is the definite article? I think.
I mean, it's like, it's like in English, the, here, Alif Lam, A-L. This is why, by the way, my name is Abdul Fadi, Al-Fadi, meaning the Redeemer, the Savior. People think like my name is Al-Fadi. It's not, but anyway. But if you say Al-Fadi together, that's the Redeemer, because the A-L is the definite article.
Well, you're being pretty proud. That means you are the Redeemer, not Christ
I am the
alone.
Redeemer. I have Masters of Divinity, so you can call me Divine Master also. There you go. You got the package.
We're going to have a hard time getting you out of the studio with the head you're getting right now. So there is the definite article. It all is from the north. That's why I want people to see. It's in that red area where these are unique to. That nowhere else. Now, the Arabic that was spoken in the Hijaz, where the Quran supposedly was created, is this Arabic, which is the big square that you see here, the big red square. That is known as Sabaic. That is from the Sabaeans.
Saba, and that's the kingdom of Saba, by the way, which is associated with Queen of Sheba.
Sheba, you're right. Which is way down south here in what is today Yemen and Sana'a. See where I'm pointing down here? That is where the Sabaeans are. That is where the Arabic comes from that would have been used up here in the Hijaz. The Sabaic Arabic does not have the Ihram, does not have the Tar Marbuta, does not have the Alif Maksura, does not have the definite article. That you will not find in Sabaic Arabic.
And let's say why this is important. Folks, why is Dr. J bringing this up? If the Quran originated from Mecca, why in the world it is going to be written in a language that has nothing to do with the area? That's the question we're asking. Why do I bring this up? How often do our Muslim friends tell us, oh, Jesus speak Aramaic, why is it written in Greek? They have a problem with that. Well, okay, explain to me this problem then.
Now, this is a huge problem because every Muslim everywhere, doesn't matter whether they are radical or nominal or liberal, they all have to say that this is from the place that Muhammad lived. This is from Mecca itself. This is the Qurayshi dialect. No, 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 no. This is not Qurayshi. This is not Sabaic. This is Nabatean Arabic. This is a much further northern Arabic. And back in those days, it was even more pronounced because you didn't have that much contact between the south and the north like you do today. So what's even more interesting, and this is what I think is, when you look at the Nabatean Aramaic, that is, and we call it a Nabatean Aramaic. We're going to talk about the Aramaic coming up later on when we get to the Quran. But the Nabatean Aramaic existed 600 miles further north, way up here. While the 7th century Arabic of Mecca, if there was any Quran written in the 7th century here in Mecca or in Medina, because those are the two cities that the Quran was supposedly written, both Mecca and Medina, it would have used the Sabaic from here. Here's what's fascinating to me. The Sabaic Arabic did have dots and vowels. The harakat, which is going to have a huge impact when we get to the qira'ats and the ahruf. That's yet to come.
That's another problem.
Because the whole problem with qira'ats and ahruf, the whole difficulty is that the Arabic that existed at the time of Muhammad didn't have any dots and vowels. Therefore, they needed to create dots and vowels. And that's why you have such a multiplicity of different qira'ats, different Qurans. That's yet to come. Had it been written in Mecca and Medina, had the Quran really been written that far south, there were already dots and vowels. None of this would have been a problem. There would be no such problem with qira'ats or ahruf had it been written in Sabbaic Arabic.
Right. And without jumping the gun, and talking about the qira'at, all I want to say, so far, Dr. J, we proved a very important, aspect about Islam, and now we're talking about the book itself. Everything that leads to its history comes from a different geographical area. Let's just put it this way.
From much further north.
Right.
Look at the map again. This is north. This is south.
Right.
Now we're going to go to another problem. And this is actually a funny kind of problem. And that is, what about the prophets? Where were the prophets buried? According to the traditions, according to the standard Islamic narrative. Let's see what the standard Islamic narrative tells us about where how many of them to begin with. But look at the names when we get there. This is going to be fun. The next one.
Absolutely. And it's going to be fun because, to be honest, if all of these prophets that we're going to talk about existed in where the standard Islamic narrative says, then how in the world, we find Muslims that don't even have a clue that these prophets actually in that geographical area. So until next time, have a blessed day. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel Sira International and click on the bell so that you receive notifications whenever we publish a new video or go live. I would also like to appeal to you to consider becoming a Patreon patron by clicking the link right below. By doing so, you can give towards the production of these videos. There are also other options for you where you can give to our channel. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.